Alright, hope you guys are ready for this. Because it's taken a long time to mentally prepare myself to really get this right, you know. Now, it's one of those things where I don't know if I can ever do it correctly, but I gotta do it. Once and for all. Coming at you. It's time to review Sonic.
It makes me question why!
6 for the Game Boy. What? But oh, you thought? Oh, what? Oh, no. See, look. If y'all to pay attention in your math classes, you'd know that you could put an infinite number of zeros in front of any number, and it would still, by, counting, still be that number. Like, doesn't matter how many zeros are there, it's still just, 6, mathematically speaking. Yeah. You didn't know that? Well, it's true. Yeah, so, I mean, the icon. Okay, I expect that. See, understand that the game I'm going to be talking about has really crappy artwork. So I wanted to do something nicer for the icon, so that people, would click on the video, and get my views up. It all makes sense if you think about it that way, and don't think about that. It's just don't look. We're going to talk Sonic 6. What's Sonic 6, you say? That is an excellent question. What in the blue heck is Sonic 6? How is that a thing? I will explain this. It is a pirated game released in what we think to be 1998. There's still a lot of hazy issues about this game. You don't know. It's just mysterious. The thing about pirated games. Now when I say pirated, I don't mean the modern day equivalent of game piracy. See, there was a time where it was normal, not normal, but almost common for these renegade video game hackers to take a game, mod it, and then re-release it under a different title based on whatever modification they made, or sometimes not even based on the modifications, and use that to turn a profit off of somebody else's hard work. Nowadays, when you say pirating a game, it means you are literally going online and stealing it from the developer. You're the pirate. Yar har, fiddle-dee-dee, shame on you. How dare you steal from these people, you monster! Anyway, back before the internet was commonplace, it was a lot easier to make fake games and release them onto an more obscure market and take advantage of people's ignorance. Many of you probably remember me covering Sonic Jam 6, that horrible hack of a hack. I just recently figured this out. It was actually a hack of a hack. Go figure. That was basically Sonic, but in Mario, and it was terrible. It was awful. It's horrible. Anyway, this hack, Sonic 6, I can confirm, was actually released on a cartridge and actually sold in stores in somewhere out there, I don't know. Presumably to take advantage of people who knew what Sonic was, but not like anything else about them, like grandparents. Or even parents. Like, I don't know about you, but my parents knew, like, not a thing about, like, what game companies owned what properties or anything like that. Like, to us, that's commonplace. We know that in the 90s, Sonic would have never appeared on a Game Boy. That's not a normal thing, ever. It wasn't until the 2000s when Sega started doing third-party stuff, and Sonic would be on the GBA, but he never appeared in the Game Boy except here, in this horrific pirate knockoff game. Now the question you're probably asking, well, what do they mod? Do they mod a Mario game like with Sonic Jam 6? No, actually. These modders are known to have modded at least 2 different games, both turning them into Sonic games, and both times actually choosing a game that kind of makes at least a little bit of sense to turn into a Sonic game. I mean, of course, Speedy Gonzales. The 2 Speedy games in question was one for the Super Nintendo, as well as the one we're talking about with Sonic 6, Speedy Gonzales for the Game Boy. It is believed that these hackers did both of these hacks, producing Sonic the Hedgehog for the Super Nintendo, as well as Sonic 6 for the Game Boy, based off of the Speedy games. And at least in one vein, it kind of makes sense. Both these characters are known for their speed. I mean, they're both Speedy and Sonic. They go fast, is what they do. And at least in the Game Boy's case, The game actually takes a lot from Sonic in terms of its level layout and by having loops and springs. Though admittedly the game kind of forgets what makes Sonic so fun, but I'll talk about that in a second. It's just so weird to think about how things used to be, where these renegade black hat hackers could, hack a game, sprite swap it, release it on the market, and make a quick buck off of effectively someone else's hard work. I mean, you're taking advantage of both a well-known Sega property and Sunsoft, the developer of both the Speedy games that we're talking about here, using someone else's work to make your own money. I mean, that's scummy. I mean, however you feel about modern piracy when it comes to stealing from developers, maybe you say, oh, I just use it to try out the game and then I buy the game if I like it. I mean, that logic is one thing, but these guys were literally stealing these games, hacking them, putting minimum effort in, and releasing them to make themselves money off of little to no effort at all. That, to me, is kind of garbage. And it wasn't like every single one of these hacking groups back then was like this. Some, even today, don't do it for money. I mean, ROM hacks these days are relatively commonplace, and most modern ROM hackers don't charge for their work because they know it's violently illegal and unethical. You can't just make money off of someone else's work, Edison. But in this case, it seems to be that they did. And again, with minimum effort because, wow. In terms of the Super Nintendo one, which I'm gonna give minimum effort into talking about because there's really not much to say, it's pretty much the same game, except in the Speedy game, you're running around saving Speedy's other mouse friends. But Sonic is running around saving multiple Mario clones, all of whom shout the name Mario whenever they get saved. It's actually really annoying. Also, you guys realize Mario can talk, right? Like, I know he doesn't talk very often, but he totally does it. And he absolutely says things more than just his name. You could have had him say, thank you, or appreciate it, or get good, scrub. I don't know, anything but his name. He's not a Pokemon. This hack is awful, and I mean dreadfully, dreadfully terrible. It's buggy, it's missing half the levels are swapped, and they replaced the music with horrific tracks that are nowhere close to Sunsoft's well-known quality when it comes to music. Like, if you're gonna hack a game, at least keep the good assets in there. You left the level design and backgrounds in, why would you change the music? Because you really thought your tracks were better? Because they aren't. They really aren't. Literally, they couldn't be anything close to how Sunsoft handled those stuff. One of the best things about Sunsoft games was the music, and Sunsoft was very good at platformers. Doing a sprite swap, while more complicated than it sounds, like, to put Sonic into a Speedy game, it actually seems like something that could kind of work out. But here, it didn't. It doesn't help that Sonic can't jump on enemies, he has to kick them like Speedy does, because they couldn't even reprogram that. Because that would have been effort. And as I explained, effort is something they just did not put into this at all. It's funny we're talking about Speedy. And I'm only gonna bring this up because I know someone in the comments is gonna bring it up. Is Speedy racist? Like, not him, the character, like the concept. I think his origins are a little dubious, but it's funny to think about in comparison to how Looney Tunes has been under the microscope lately when it comes to Lola Bunny being apparently way too attractive, and Pepe Le Pew's only character trait being sexual harassment, which, at least the latter especially, I totally understand. But the thing about Speedy is that people thought he was offensive before anyone actually said he was offensive from the group that he would have been offending. Like, the character is actually super popular to this day in Latin America. Like, people of Latin descent, of Mexican nationality specifically, seem to really like Speedy. And as far as my research has shown, it seems like people who aren't Latino are the ones who are saying, oh my god, he's so offensive, we gotta get him off the air. But yet, actual Latin Americans seem okay with Speedy. And if you think about it, it actually kind of makes sense. Like, yes, Speedy is kind of stereotypical with the sombrero and the classical Mexican design, and he runs around screaming Spanish phrases on occasion, so yeah, we got that. But he's not like a negative stereotype, you know? To begin with, he's one of the Looney Tunes that has a known superpower, and he's often a positive character in most of his shorts. He's friendly, free-spirited, and seems to be an overall good guy. Mouse. Whatever. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, first of all, when it comes to offensive things, you have to hear from the people that should or could be offended by it before you make any rash decisions about how offensive something is, because, in Speedy's case at least, If the Latin Americans are okay with it, I don't think anyone should question it. That's fine. If anything, back in the 50s, Speedy was arguably somewhat progressive, putting a Latin American character, on the page, showing that not only Latin Americans could be, a focal point of plots and positive figures and role models, but also could speak perfect English like Speedy can, which is another horrible stereotype that should probably be avoided. Which, again, Speedy doesn't have to deal with. He does speak Spanish, but he speaks English pretty well. But in addition, even if you want to call Speedy a stereotype, let's be fair, I don't think he'd be on the same level as, Bugs Bunny doing blackface, or pretending to be a slave being whipped by a Confederate soldier. I got nothing for any of that. That was over the line. I think we can agree that was pretty bad. That's pretty bad. But Speedy, as long as Latin Americans are okay with it, I'm okay with it too. Also, I got way off track with that. I only had to bring it up because bringing up Speedy Gonzalez is just like, it's the internet. You know how people are. I don't want to deal with it. So Sonic 6. This is why everybody's here. What's the deal with Sonic 6? Well, to begin with, I should probably bring up that the Speedy games don't actually work the same when compared to the Super Nintendo versus the Game Boy. I believe this is due to the Game Boy's limitations, but Speedy doesn't actually move that fast on the screen. Even though the levels are set up like Sonic levels with springs and loops, the design overall seems to be more like a classic platformer. It doesn't help that this is a one-hit platformer, where one hit will kill you, so you have to kind of be careful. Like I said, it kind of loses what makes Sonic fun when you have to be so careful that going fast, or at least as fast as the Game Boy will allow, just isn't doable. It's not a feasible thing. The game's hard enough even being careful, because let me tell you, the game's pretty tough, but if you attempt to get any kind of speed, and thus, play as Speedy Gonzalez, you kind of lose that. Instead of being like a Super Nintendo version and having you rescue your mouse friends, you just have to get to the end of the level, so it's simpler, but you can't actually kill any enemies to my knowledge. At no point does Speedy get any kind of attack, not even his little kick like that he had in the Super Nintendo game. So you have to avoid all the enemies, not go fast even though you really, really want to, and just hope you get to the end of the level. Admittedly, it's not super bad, it's playable, the control is solid, and the music's nice. And I think as a distraction of a Game Boy game, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you could also do better. So it's kind of that licensed game deal where it's like, yeah, it's fine, but I could play Super Mario Land, But for a Looney Tunes game, you could do a lot worse. I've played worse. As for the Sonic hack version, Sonic 6, well, it's better than the Super Nintendo hack, but only on the technical level, because unlike the Super Nintendo hack, they didn't remove levels or remove music and replace it with crap. They actually left the music entirely alone and just reordered the levels. And I would say that screws with the difficulty curve, but all the levels are so hard, on an equal playing field in that regard, that it really doesn't matter what order you play them in. There's a Mexico zone. You literally called the zone Mexico Zone? Really? Now you might think you could blame this on the hackers. You actually cannot. All levels were called zones in the Speedy game as well, and it too had Mexico Zone. And according to these games, Mexico is apparently bathed in unquenchable fire. I didn't know that. I also assume it's probably not true, but if it is true, it would explain why so many want to immigrate to America. I'm just saying. Have we checked to make sure that everything's okay down there? I'm just saying. It might be reasonable to figure out why people want to move so bad rather than just build a wall to keep them out. I just feel like there's a better way to do this. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, we're not getting political right now. We're talking about a horrible, horrible, horrible pirate hack from the 90s. Why do I keep... What is it with Speedy Gonzalez and attracting this in me? I don't know. Alright. So, what's the problem with this game? Well, it is a sprite swap again. So, the gameplay, just like Speedy, is literally the exact same. Now, to be fair, on one hand, that means the control is pretty solid, like I said. It's just like the Speedy game. They didn't mess any of that up. But on the other hand, you have to point out the fact that not only did they use Sonic sprites from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which do not translate well to the Game Boy's color palette, or rather lack thereof. No, seriously. When you pass over certain objects in the background, you can actually see through Sonic's eyes or the white spots of his fur. It's hilarious. But also, Sonic's sprite that they used is slightly bigger than Speedy's. Now they seem to have adjusted the hitbox to fill this purpose. To begin with, I think they made this hitbox a bit too big. I've been hit without actually being hit before. And if you've ever had that happen to you in a game, I'm sure you know how irritating that is. But the other problem is that even if the hitbox was properly sized, it makes the game a lot more difficult being a larger character. There are certain parts of this game that you have to get through fairly narrow spaces or dodge enemies flying up and down. Speedy has an easier time of this because he's shorter, but Sonic has none of his powers, none of his moves, none of the things that make it fun to be Sonic. He can't spin dash, he can't even spin in a ball, he can't jump on enemies to kill them. He couldn't do it in the Super Nintendo version, but at least he could kick them like Speedy can. You can't even do that here. There's nothing about this that feels like playing a Sonic game. Like, you look like Sonic, but Sonic doesn't behave like Sonic. He can't fight back at all, and like I said, this game is not about speed, even though it's kind of designed that way. You have to be too careful for that. I admit I did not play through this game in its entirety, and I used a password to get footage of some of the other levels because, real talk, it's just not worth it. Why bother? What would I possibly say? What possible achievement could I have by saying I beat Sonic 6? Like, what does that mean to anybody? To most people, Sonic 6 isn't even a real thing. I mean, even now in the year 2021, we've had Sonic 4, episodes 1 and 2, and I guess if you really want to push it, you could argue that Sonic Mania is like Sonic 5. You could make that argument even though it doesn't actually have the number after it. But my point is that even now, we still haven't gotten a real Sonic 6, let alone this fake, horrible, garbage ripoff game that's just a sprite swap of a Looney Tunes Speedy Gonzales video game. It's one of the laziest hacks possible, and the very notion that these people released it for money to take advantage of people who didn't know any better is just scummy. Like, people shouldn't be able to get away with that stuff. You shouldn't be able to steal someone else's work, use it as your own, and then make a profit off of it. That's a load of crap. Just like the game is. If you have to play either of these games that I've brought up, at least play the Speedy versions, because at least there, you're playing the original developer's work as it was intended, and neither game is really that bad for a licensed character. So I would say they're probably worth it if you like platformers, but the hacks, don't bother. Oh yeah. Happy April Fool's Day! Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.